This is Game On, discussing the biggest games and all the latest sports news with Johnny Montalbano and Hank Indictor on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
It's showtime, folks. Episode 24 of Game On here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. I'm Johnny Montalbano, joined as I always am by Hank Indictor. Hank, welcome. How are you?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing well. You know, this is the time, Hank. We are into September. It is time where we start kicking this show up another notch, as they say, because we've got a lot to get to, and I'm excited because the NFL is back this week. You know, college just came back for real. We've got, playoff. We got baseball coming down the stretch, and of course, also some basketball news. So I'm excited. This is going to be a great episode, as it always is, and we have a lot to get to, of course, over this episode. But folks want to hear from you as well. Of course, plenty of ways for you to get aboard. So make sure to, first of all, subscribe to our YouTube channel there on Empty the Bench ETB Network. That is our YouTube channel. And of course, follow us on the show here. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/GameOnETB. We're on Twitter at GameOnETB and Instagram, GameOn_ETB, and our personal handles there on the bottom of your screen. So again, we have a lot to get to over the show. We are going to have our good buddy Tom Scavetta from Review and Preview, and of course, Big Blue Avenue coming up in a little bit to preview the football Giants, who had a very interesting offseason, new head coach, new GM. So we'll get to that. It's going to be a little Venn diagram with me here, Tom there, and Hank sandwiched in the middle because, Hank does both shows.
Yep.
Of course, I'm a Review and Preview alumni, and they're about to kick off their 12th year over there. So I'm looking forward to chatting with Tom and just a little bit.
Well, Johnny, in my book, you still are, and in fact, you always will be part of the Review and Preview family.
Absolutely. And
I'm sure Tom will probably agree with me on that too.
Yes, definitely. And in fact, I'll be there to kick off that anniversary show. That's coming up a week from Wednesday, the 14th. So we'll get to that. We've also got, some college football stuff, obviously week 1 last week. And also the playoff is going to expand to 12 teams. That is official. Could happen in 2024. It's definitely going to happen starting in 26. And we'll get to that. And Donovan Mitchell, Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes are over. We will give you our thoughts as he heads over to the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know not a lot of Knicks fans that were not happy about that. I'm going to give you a little bit of a different perspective on that because I've seen a lot of reaction in the past week, and so we'll get to that. And if we have time, we've also got baseball, Yankees and Mets, and, of course, the league coming down the stretch there. But, Hank, as I said, the NFL is back. Bills and Rams kick off the 2022 season on Thursday, and that's where we'll get things going here with a matchup of two teams that are, among the favorites to make it to Super Bowl 57 in February. And this is going to be a cool game because, obviously the Rams are defending Super Bowl champions. Didn't really change that much in the offseason if you think about it. I mean, they lost. Andrew Wyth, of course, retired. I love what they did bringing in Bobby Wagner because I think defensively, now it makes them a three-headed monster on defense with Jalen Ramsey and him and who else am I thinking of here?
Sorry.
Aaron Donald. Hello, the biggest guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, what about
That's a little brain cramp on my part there, but obviously, three-headed monster on defense there against.
That's the funny reel, by the way.
What's that?
Add that to the funny reel.
Yeah, add that to the reel. Yep, that's for sure. But yeah, so that's happening, and then you look over on the Buffalo Bills side of things. They got Von Miller, who was on the Rams team last year, and Josh Allen is still there, obviously. So this is a matchup of two teams that I think we're going to be talking about deep into January and possibly even into February as well. But as the season gets going here, Hank, this game on Thursday night, what do you think?
I think it's going to be a very close game, but, as scary as the Rams are, and I know they're a team that's coming off a Super Bowl championship, and, wow, a Super Bowl championship that probably was 5 years in the making. Only took 1 million draft picks that they got rid of to get it done, but happened anyways. But you look at the Buffalo Bills, this is a team that's slowly been getting better every year. And I would actually, to quote a lyric from a certain song I heard a lot at MSG, they built it better than they did before. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I would say Josh Allen leads them on a late touchdown drive to give them the victory.
Yeah, so there's a couple of other things too. If you're taking this from a betting perspective, or even just as a pick perspective, or any sort of perspective, the Super Bowl defending champion, the home team usually wins these games coming out. I mean, it's difficult, going on the road to a defending champion site when they're getting their rings and raising the banner here. But I'll tell you, I love what the Bills have done this offseason. Obviously getting Von Miller to shore up that defense. And let's remember, the Bills' defense has been something that's been talked about for a while now. And I know they played that game. And look, they were literally seconds away from beating the Chiefs in that playoff game last year and maybe altering, the course of the postseason. So, I mean, they are there. They were 11-6 last year. So I think they're going to take another step forward this year. And this is such a tough one because both teams are kind of, they've got their strengths. I mean, offensively, for sure, we know the Rams really have not changed much on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, the only really loss they had was Odell Beckham, but he was hurt towards the end of the year. I know Robert Woods got traded to Tennessee. Sony Michel's no longer there, but I mean, Allen Robinson they brought in. I mean, they extended Stafford. So they do have for the most part, the team's the same. And the Bills bringing in Von Miller on defense. Here's what I would say, though, and when it comes to this, there's a couple of things, too. If you look at the Rams last year, their rushing attack was not that great. They were 25th in rushing yards, 28th in rushing touchdowns, and 25th in yards per carry. And both of their running backs are dealing with injuries right now. So Cam Akers, he missed the majority of the season with a torn Achilles. Darrell Henderson had his moments, but they're both dealing with injuries right now. So with Stafford coming, with Stafford's elbow that's been discussed a lot in camp, it might put a lot of extra pressure on the throwing ability for Stafford. I mean, I don't think there's any question about his ability, but the talks about his elbow this offseason, and he might have to be throwing it a lot.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think the Rams are definitely going to have their problems as they try to repeat as champions. And look, despite, the history of the home team winning on the night that their banner gets unveiled, I think it's going to be an early rough start for them, but they'll definitely find a way to rebound later on in the year. I still think it's going to be a big race between them and the 49ers for the NFC West, but I'm sorry, I've just been so high on the Bills over the past, since the end of the season and in the past off season and now to this year. I think this very well might be the year that they finally go over the top. Would not surprise me if we're talking about them lifting the Lombardi at within the next 6 months, I would say.
Yeah, I think
if I'm doing my math right.
Just about, yeah. Before you know it'll be here. But I'll tell you, I look at this, and just from a pick perspective, to me, the Bills are the better team in this situation. I think they are. I think this is going to be a high-scoring, close game. So, it's very rare for the defending Super Bowl champion when they're playing at home to be a road dog. This game opened up as the Bills -1. It's gone up to 2.5. And I think this is going to be a field goal game. But at the end of the day, Hank, I think the Bills are the better team in this spot. Like I said, you know what? If you're going to force Stafford to be throwing the ball more than he needs to, I think that's advantage them. Von Miller knows to get to him as well. I mean, I love the edge, the defensive guys for the Rams, but my first official pick of the 2022 season for us here at Game On from yours truly, I'm going to take the Bills to win and to cover, and I'm thinking you're looking at a high-scoring game, something along the lines of 34-31, something along those lines. So give me the Bills -2.5 as my season opening pick.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm gonna take the same thing as you. I'm thinking more along the lines of, say, 28-24, but high scoring game would not surprise me either. But either way, give me the Bills.
All right, so there we go. So Hank and I both take the Bills minus 2.5 on our season opener. And just a programming note for you all: every Friday here on our Twitter page, also our Facebook page, on the ETB Network YouTube channel, we will have our Football Friday picks. They will drop every Friday, where Hank and I will pick every game against the spread. So stay tuned for that. So we'll have college picks coming up on Thursdays and NFL picks on Fridays. Like I said, we are just getting started because we've got a lot of content coming up. So Hank, this is the fun time of the year. So not only just that though, week 1, it's back. And, I look at this, there's a few things I look at when I look at the schedule and I look at the NFL as we start here in week 1. I'm looking at two multiple revenge games, but 2 involving quarterbacks that I think are very intriguing. Obviously, we talked about this before. The Browns and the Panthers, Baker Mayfield starting at home against the Browns. And I know we're going to make our official picks on Friday, but I think this is a golden spot for Mayfield to put up some points and get the revenge game against the Browns, obviously without Deshaun Watson and a couple of other guys who've been dealing with injuries here. So you got Baker starting at home in his Panthers debut. And then, of course, Monday Night Football, Browns Seahawks, Russell Wilson going back to Seattle now as a member of the Browns and $245 million richer to boot. So you're going to have that where he goes back and faces the 12th man. Going to be very interesting to see him in a Broncos uniform there going to Seattle. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we know who I'm probably going to be giving the edge to in that matchup. As great as Russell Wilson is, I think going back home, he's one of the few. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's probably the only road cornerback that really can play with the 12th man as a road team, or who's used to playing like with the 12th man. So he'll probably be feeling a good sense of motivation. So I'm going to give that one to the Broncos here.
Yeah, and the Seahawks, I think, are one of the. I think they're one of
the. He's going to want to get revenge on his old team just for how they built around him within the past 5 years, or should I say, how they didn't build around him. I take that back.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks are going to have games this year when they're home that they could steal a win or two, but that is a team that is just. I know they got some weapons on offense, but you're going with Geno Smith as the starter, and Drew Lock is there as well. I don't see how the Seahawks win more than 5 games this year. We did a NFL preview show last week, and go check that out also after you watch this episode. And I think the Seahawks are going to be among the worst teams in the league this year. You cannot convince me with Geno Smith starting that you're going to win that many games. And yeah. Wilson's done this before. Obviously the thumb injury last year very limited him, so that's going to be really a question mark. But he said that he could play till he's 40 or 45, and I think he's going to be out there to prove it. So we'll see what happens there. But you've got that, and then a couple of other things. Obviously we're going to get to the Giants here with Tom in just a few minutes, but 2 other teams in that division with storylines. How is Dak Prescott going to be with the Cowboys this year? And I say that because his offensive line has changed dramatically. Obviously, we talked last week about Jaden Smith being out with the injury. I think the Cowboys are good. I think the Eagles have surpassed them. I think the Eagles had a great offseason, and I think Jalen Hurts is ready to take the next step. And that's why I'd love the Eagles to win the NFC East this year. Well, as an analyst, not as a fan, but right. I think that's what's going to happen. And I'm also looking at 2 other quarterback situations here down in Miami. This is the time for Tua Tagovailoa to shine. The offseason moves that they made, bringing in Hill from Kansas City. Shoring up that line. He's got multiple running backs now, so Tua doesn't have to be that 30 to 40 passer attempt a game sort of QB. So I think Miami, I think the Dolphins are going to be one of the 3 wild card teams in the AFC. That's how much I like them. So I that's something to watch. And Pittsburgh. So Mitchell Trubisky looks like he's going to be the starter because they named him a team captain on Monday. But how long before they switch over to Kenny Pickett? Something to watch there. And Pittsburgh, I think of them as like about an 8 or a 9 win team. I mean, it's definitely a step down, but they always seem to be consistent. And I think they'll find a way to win 8 or 9 games. But you're in a tough division with both Baltimore and Cincinnati.
That's going to happen pretty soon, I think. I would say probably the over-under for when they're going to make the quarterback swap. I'm going to go probably like week 4, week 5, because, I mean, look, I've seen enough out of Mitch Trubisky with the Chicago Bears. Not saying it's all his fault, but enough to know that I really don't think I think he's going to perform so poorly that that Tomlin's going to have to make the switch. And I might be one in the minority, but I think that Kenny Pickett should be the starter in week 1. That's just me.
Yeah. I think we're going to see that a couple of times this year with quarterbacks. I think we're going to see that down in Atlanta with Mariota starting there and then eventually transferring over to Desmond Ridder. But maybe by doing this, though, what you do is if you start the veteran QB, Hank, we know there are going to be quarterback injuries in the NFL because that's just the reality. Injuries are a part of it. Maybe you start these veterans and if they play well, you can actually get some value for them. I know it's crazy. We're talking about value for Marcus Mariota and Mitch Trubisky, but I think it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, definitely. It wouldn't surprise me, but like I'm just saying I'm really not high on Mitch Trubisky, and I've never really been too high on him to begin with. And I think after like say 2019, you could kind of tell he was not the answer for the Chicago Bears. But as far as Kenny Pickett goes, look, whether he's a guy that will succeed in the NFL, I think that remains to be seen. But at the same time, like he did so well for them during the preseason. And normally I'm one of those guys that says, you should like let the starting QB rest during his rookie year. And look, we know how it worked with our Giants and Eli Manning. We know how it worked with the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. It's not a bad way to like develop the starting quarterback, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that Kenny Pickett is ready to assume the reins at starter, and he's like 24 years old too. So that's another thing that factors in for me.
Yeah, and as I look at this league too, and I brought this up in our preview show that we did with Empty the Bench, the fact that you've got a lot of different head coaches this year, whether it's young ones or ones that have changed organizations, is something to watch too. And if you look at teams that are ready to take the next step, sometimes your question mark is with the head coach. Like I'll tell you a perfect example. One team that I think is ready to take off, but you question the coach, are the Chargers. I think the Chargers are going to win that loaded AFC West. I said that I think they're going to actually be the representative in the AFC this year to make it to the Super Bowl. I think you're looking at a Charger Rams Super Bowl just because I think Justin Herbert is going to be one of the top QBs. I think he's proven that, but I think he's going to be in the MVP discussion this year. That team is loaded. They had a great offseason, but the big questions the head coach. And you look at these other teams that have switched coaches as well. The Raiders have Josh McDaniels. So I mean you have new guys in different places. Nathaniel Hackett's now over there in Denver. That would be one thing as well. But I know, Hank, you weren't with us last week, but I'm taking the Chiefs. I'm sorry. I'm taking the Chargers and the Rams in the Super Bowl.
Whoa, Los Angeles matchup.
I think it's going to be a Los Angeles Super Bowl. Absolutely.
Wow. I'm trying to think. Has that ever happened where like two cities played each other, or one city has represented two teams in the Super Bowl? Because we know it's never happened with New York. We know. Well, obviously, there aren't really too many other cities where that's possible.
Maybe the same state would be probably the closest.
Well, same state, yes, but like the same city, I don't think that's ever happened before. Like, I would totally be interested in a matchup of Justin Herbert against Matthew Stafford, and you look at how all those teams were like so intent about going to Los Angeles, like that would be like an NFL marketing dream too, I would imagine.
Yeah, Los Angeles hasn't been a big NFL city, but you've got two quarterbacks at the top of their game, two teams with stellar defenses. It'd be a pretty cool matchup.
Yeah, I I'm not so sure I would put the Chargers there. I'm leaning more towards the Super Bowl being a rematch of week 1 because, as I said, I am extremely high on the Buffalo Bills. I mean, look, could you make the case that they paid too much for Von Miller? Sure, you could. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that argument, but I think having a leader like him in that pass rush that's already pretty good, and then improving your running game, I really think that they're ready to take the next step forward. Yeah, I'm going to say it's going to be the Bills against the Rams because I don't. As far as the NFC goes, there's really not too many teams that I look at as having competition. However, I do think the Chargers will take another step forward and make their first playoff appearance, whether it's as a division winner or as a wild card winner. That I'll probably explain more into detail later. Sorry for that little troll job.
Oh, I agree with you about the NFC. I like the Rams because they really didn't change that much. And a way that teams repeat not only in the NFL but in sports is when you really have that same group of characters and you make a couple of minor adjustments and you get back there. But the question with the Bucs is now, if you saw this camp and this preseason, their offensive line. They're down multiple guys on the offensive line, and Tom Brady at age 45 is how mobile. He's not really that mobile of a guy, so you need that line protection, and the Rams exploited that last year. So I think I like them. I mean, I think the Bucs are going to win the NFC South. I don't think there's any question there. But that if that offensive line it doesn't protect Brady, that's going to be a problem over there in Tampa. I like the Eagles to win the East. I do believe Jalen Hurts. I think he's going to take a step forward. I think that's going to be key. The Packers, to me, win the NFC North. But the problem the Packers have, though, Hank, to me, and why I don't think they're going to make a deep enough run, is they're not that deep at the receiving core. They lost some guys in the offseason, so their depth is not really there. I think Aaron Rodgers can get the best out of some other guys, but their depth is not really there, and I don't think they're deep enough to make a deep enough run in the NFC. And other than that, I mean, who are your other teams? The Vikings, maybe the Cowboys. I'm not ready to go there. The Cowboys lost a lot this offseason and didn't do well replacing other guys. So I don't believe in them. But yeah, we'll see. And what about the Niners are tough to figure out because I don't know what I'm going to get out of Trey Lance.
Yeah, I think the Niners definitely have the potential to be solid, but I agree. I think that definitely hinges on the success of Trey Lance. But remember what I said about how I'm okay with resting your rookie quarterback and letting him learn the system while you have somebody else who's still a competent quarterback. I think they definitely have the potential to be really good. Problem is you're stuck with the Los Angeles Rams in that division. So I don't think they're going to be winning that one. But yeah, as far as the NFC North, I feel like I'm taking the Packers by default. I mean, you still have Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you paid a shit ton of money just to keep him around, but you also don't have Devontae Adams, and it's not nearly as deep of a team as what they've had in years past. And if I'm being honest, I think even though they're a playoff team, I feel like they pretty much ran out or done in terms of their window of opportunity right there. And as far as the other teams in the NFC North, I have the Bears being in last. I think the Detroit Lions might surprise some people. If you looked at some excerpts of, Hard Knocks, I really like what Dan Campbell's doing. And considering he's a former New York Giant, I am very much rooting for that guy to succeed. And also, I just love his personality. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Detroit Lions somehow find a way to improve. But I think if you really look at the most improved team in that division, it's the Vikings. However, they still have a bit of question marks on their end too. And I'm still not sold on a team led by Kirk Cousins. I'm sorry. That's just how it is.
I think the Packers win the NFC North by a game. I think the Vikings
That's
close
fair.
the gap, but I don't think it's enough to get over there. But I think the Vikings make it as a wild card. I think they'll get in as a wild card. I would say the other ones, it's going to be close between the Niners and the Cardinals. I think the Cardinals will close the gap a little bit too, but maybe the Cowboys get in as a wild card. But I'm just not. I just don't like what they've done. But we'll see. But you were talking about Dan Campbell and the Giants, and speaking of the Giants, they had a very interesting offseason because it was a transitional offseason from the front office perspective. They obviously brought in Joe Shane, Brian Dable. They had to do a lot of things with the salary cap situation that they were in. And Tom Scavetta, our good buddy from Review and Preview and co-host of Big Blue Avenue, along with Hank, joined us earlier to preview the New York Football Giants and how they're going to do in 2022. Well, as we've been talking about on the show, the NFL is back. First game of the season starts on Thursday, and for most of the rest of the league, it begins on Sunday, including our New York Football Giants. And here to preview the Giants season, looking back at the offseason, looking ahead here to the season, is our good buddy from Review and Preview and Big Blue Avenue, and that is Tom Scavetta. Tell him, welcome back. How are you, bud?
How's it going, gents? Thanks very much for having me. Excited to talk about some New York Football Giants as week one is just several days away at this point. I'm pumped. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, it's been quite the off season for us. The transfer over to Brian Dable and Joe Shane, and I've said on the show, and I know you and I agree on this. I think considering the situation that they were both put into, I think for the most part they've had a pretty good off season shape going into this season. So, what would you? Looking back at the draft, I know that's when the last time we had you on was about the draft, but looking now back at the draft and now looking into the season, how would you rate their off season so far?
I would still, again, it's tough, right? Because they haven't set foot on the field yet as far as regular season goes. From what I've seen in preseason, the offense has done a complete 180. Offensive line gave up the least amount of pressures in the preseason in the NFC. So that's a good thing right there. I think the pieces that they added, not just in free agency and the draft, from then until now, I would still give it an A minus. Again, Shane had his hands tied because of the situation that Dave Gettleman left the Giants in. And as of today, or yesterday, that is, the Giants were still $4.6 million over the cap. And, trying to move pieces, shuffle things around. Joe Shane's doing a great job with what he can. So I give him props for what he's done. And, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things to look at going to the season. I think, number one, the biggest thing that you look at going into the season is the quarterback. Daniel Jones is a guy that's been talked about a lot because of where he was drafted and stuff. But this is now going to be the fourth different coordinator, third different coach. Fourth offensive coordinator, third head coach. We've seen with like Baker Mayfield. He's gone through a lot of transformation in that regard too. So, fourth different coordinator, third head coach. I mean, it's weird because you're heading into possibly his last year and you still really don't know about him.
Yeah, and it's sad. Hank and I have discussed on Big Blue Avenue how, Daniel Jones has been given a real raw end of the deal. For me, though, he does have a lot of injury issues despite the coaching changes that have been made over the past several years. And, you're starting to run out of excuses at this point. If he can't stay on the football field, then you can't pay him long term. I think what Daniel Jones is playing for this year is a franchise tag next year. Ultimately, that's what I think he's playing for. It's going to take more than one season to decide if he's worth a long-term extension or not. I think both you and I agree with that because the Giants are probably not going to have a 500 or above record this year. But you never know. I do think this team will overachieve, and I think Daniel Jones has looked impressive in the preseason, and people might not like to hear this. When Daniel Jones is fully healthy, he's a top 20 quarterback in the NFL, without a doubt. He has one of the best deep balls in the NFL. He's mobile. He's the type of modern QB that you want. He's had so many things working against him, and it comes to a matter of fact, if he can stay on the football field, he can reach great potential in the NFL. I don't think he'll ever be elite, but you want Daniel Jones eventually to fall within that top 10 to top 15 range of quarterbacks in order to feel comfortable with moving with him in the future.
Yeah, and Hank, I mean, I'll throw this to you too, because Hank's like our Venn diagram in all this, because, you know,
Yep.
Hank is with me and is with you also on Big Blue Avenues on Thursdays on the Review and Preview Sports Network. Daniel Jones, to me, if he was healthy and in the right team and the right system, I think can be successful.
Oh yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, now whether I think he's elite or not, that is something that's very much debatable. I am leaning towards no in that department. But with that having been said, Tom and I have watched numerous bits of game film on Daniel Jones, and the one conclusion that we pretty much came to is the talent is there. Like, he can throw the deep ball, especially like when he's like in the pocket and he's got like all the time in the world to throw. Like, the clips are there. You just have to dig really deep and watch them. I think the problem can be associated with like the decision making. But however, with that being said, if you also have watched enough Giants football like you and I have, you would also know that, you know, he has definitely been screwed. And Dave Gettleman, who I think we all know we can agree with, are very relieved is no longer there, did not do him any favors. Okay, maybe you can give him credit for Andrew Thomas, but that's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is he has not been given a fair shake, and he is now going through his third coach already in, what is it, only his fourth seasons? That's not ideal. That definitely not ideal at all. Now, again, can he thrive under Brian Daboll? I'm thinking maybe. I have a little bit of flashbacks with Jim Fossil being hired. Granted, I know this was like sort of before my time. I was in diapers when he was coaching the Giants, but like him being hired and, you know, sort of helping out the Giants offense, even though unfortunately he wasn't successful in helping out a certain other Duke alumni quarterback at that position. But yeah, I definitely think that Daniel Jones has the potential, but ultimately at the end of the day, and Tom, I know you're probably not going to like hearing me saying this, I unfortunately feel like the Giants are going to be at a point where they're going to be moving on from Daniel Jones simply because the NFL is a quarterback's game and they need him to take giant steps moving forward. And no, I did not mean to make a pun out of that.
No, definitely. And I will just say one thing here too. And, you know, this is where this year I think is going to be relevant. I mean, they're going to struggle this year, I think, but in some ways this year is going to be relevant throughout because you're going to try and figure out, is Jones going to be your guy going forward? And the truth of the matter is, if you still have question marks with Jones at the end of this year, then he can't be the answer. That's
right.
What I think is the problem. And then one of the other problems I think the Giants run into is, and I know I might get all over the map here, but I think the Giants are actually good enough where they're not going to be among the worst teams in the league this year. I think they're going to actually sneak out a couple of more wins than they did last year because of the schedule and because of the fact that I think they're going to, you know, with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane there, I think they're going to find a couple of ways to get a few more wins out of it. So maybe they're not going to be picking in the top like 5 heading into the draft next year. And I know next year they're talking already it's a big quarterbacks draft, but that could be something else you're running into as well. But, you know, one of the other facets, you know, speaking of offense, you know, receiving core, that's been another thing that's been talked about. You know, whether it's been the questions with Darius Slayton or dare I say the big question regarding Kenny Galladay. Tom, receiving core, you know, Jones, you know, he needs the offensive line, of course. You know, he's got Saquon Barkley, who hopefully can play a full season, but who's he going to be really throwing the ball to this year is going to be the question too.
It's a big question, and I think Daniel Jones has a mouthful of options. He has Sterling Shepard back healthy, which is great news. Kadarius Toney rumored to be ready for Week 1, which is great. The Giants have spent the last 2 years drafting a receiver in the first 2 rounds. They got Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky. David Sills finally makes the 53-man roster after 4 years of hard work. David Sills is the 9th longest tenured Giant, by the way. I think you two might want to know that. That's how much turnover there's been on this roster. But he's been a pure connection with Daniel Jones. And outside of Sills and Galladay, Darius Slayton is the only receiver on this offense that could go over the top. Everyone else is an intermediate to short route runner. and plays that slot receiver type of role. Granted, why Alex Bachman wound up not making this roster, and why I don't think people were too justified to make claims that, oh, he should have made it, because there were players that have very similar game to him, better than him at that position, as much as I like the guy. Daniel Bellinger is an interesting prospect as well at tight end. This is a guy who came out of San Diego State in the 4th round, rookie, a guy who doesn't drop passes, despite the one he did drop in the preseason. But I think him and Jones are going to develop chemistry over time. The real question, in my opinion, is the health of these receivers. And it's a shame. It seems like every position unit we talk about, guys, the biggest question is health, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver. Nobody is durable on this football team anymore. And I think out of all the receivers, I mean, David Sills is the only one that doesn't really have too big of an injury history. So I think Darius Slayton staying is great financially wise. No, but people say, oh, you're paying your wide receiver $2.5 million, but you're not just going to give him up for nothing when you have all these players ahead of him hurt, right? And the same thing goes for Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay has the best hands out of the wide receiving core, despite how many passes he's dropped and this and that. It's a chemistry thing with Daniel Jones. It's not a skill thing. It's a chemistry thing. And once he gets that chemistry down packed with Daniel Jones, he will have a really good season, in my opinion. A little different opinion than what most people are saying. And I think when you have 5 receivers that can go out and ball every Sunday, a reliable tight end who doesn't have stone hands, and a running back who is pretty much earth, wind, and fire himself in this offense, I think it gives him plenty of weapons to throw to at the end of the day. And I'd expect Daniel Jones to be just fine running this offense. And the only question is, will it be enough for him to stay on the team?
Yeah, definitely. I really completely agree with that. And I think emphasis needs to be made on the point about Giants and, staying healthy, because let's face it, like, one of the biggest things I've been talking to both of you guys about, like, with regards to the Giants, is they can never seem to catch a break with regards to health. However, with that being said, I would also say we dodged a major bullet when it was revealed that Kayvon Thibodeau's injury wasn't as serious as initially thought. And I believe he's only going to, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's only going to be missing week 1 and week 2. No? And
nope, he should be ready for week 1.
Oh, perfect.
That would be incredible. I mean, I know they were talking possibly week 1, but I mean, if he's out there on against the Titans, who I'm not high on at all this year,
that would be huge.
Yeah, I'm not high on the Titans at all this year. Real quick, before we get to the defense, and we're talking with Tom Scavetta here on the show. Tom, what's your thoughts about Saquon Barkley? I think because of the salary cap situation the Giants were in, I think one of their biggest losses was not being able to bring back Devontae Booker, even if it was only at a $2.5 million deal. Booker was actually one of their better offensive players last year. Now, maybe that's not speaking much, but, the fact they weren't able to bring him back, and, Barkley, another player that's, been talked about a lot here with the Giants, and health, again, we're 2 things in one here. What's your thoughts about Barkley as we go into this season?
My thoughts about Barkley, pretty positive, actually, because this is the best he's looked physically wise, right? Mm-hmm. It's over a year now since he's been recovered from the ACL tear. And I think the goal is to get a 1,000-yard season out of him. And I think the fact that they added pieces up front will benefit Saquon Barkley, right? They added Mark Lewinsky and John Feliciano in free agency, and then drafted Evan Neal at right tackle. So that entire right side of the line is improved. If you go back to week 18 of last year and look at the starters at center, right guard, and right tackle, none of them are on an NFL roster. So that just goes to show you that the offensive line is improved. Saquon Barkley will also be improved. Not saying that Saquon is a product of the offensive line, but every running back can't have success if they don't have a good offensive line, right? That's why it's a team sport at the end of the day. And I think Saquon will be a threat out of the backfield as well, passing game, catching passes, running the football outside zone runs seem to be his forte. And he does have elite quickness once he gets in open space. So I think his strength and his durability are the two biggest cogs of the season. They want to, fold in together and make sure they get the most out of Saquon. But I do expect a 1,000-yard season from him because of who the Giants have put in place offensively. Brian Dable, coming from a winning organization. Mike Kafka, winning organization in the Kansas City Chiefs. Shea Tierney, the quarterback's coach. DeAndre Smith, the running back's coach, coming from college. So all of these things considered, guys, Saquon is bound to have not maybe a 2018, but somewhere close to that range where you feel comfortable enough saying, hey, his value is not immense. Maybe bring him back on a 2-year deal, right? It's something you could think about. So I think Saquon's going to have a good season. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 running back, but I do think he's going to start the trend back to what he once was.
Oh, that would be awesome. Hank?
Yeah, no, Saquon is definitely one of the Giants that, I would say I'm probably just as skeptical about Saquon Barkley, but with all of that in mind, with a better coaching staff and a better offensive line, I definitely think he has the potential to have an improved season. And Tom, I think your 1,000-yard goal seems pretty realistic. And yeah, I don't really think necessarily he's going to reach that elite level. I think the more I think about it, I think 2018 was probably the year where he may have peaked, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't think the Giants can, never get any good production out of Saquon Barkley again. I think far from it. I think you'll have him have, a little bit of a comeback season. And, as you guys alluded to, I think the coaching staff and the improvement of the offensive line is definitely going to be an important figure in that department. Now, what happens in free agency, I think that's definitely going to remain to be seen, but hopefully, yeah, I would definitely love to have him back within the coming years, so long as it's at a reasonable deal.
Absolutely. Now, turning to the defense here, defense has undergone some changes too. Drafting Kayvon Thibodeau, they lost Bradbury, they lost Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, so they're gonna have a revamped defense. What do you think about that side of the ball, Tom?
The front 7, I love. The back 4 to 5, I don't. I think, quite frankly, the Giants will have one of the worst secondaries in football this year. Outside of Xavier McKinney and Adoree Jackson, there is absolutely no depth. I'm fine with Julian Love being that second starting safety, but after that, you're looking at a 4th-round rookie and a waiver wire claim. At corner, we've seen the struggles of Aaron Robinson. Darnay Holmes is a nice slot corner. I expect him to have a good year. You have Cordell Flott, who's a 3rd-round rookie. And then the 5th corner they kept on the initial roster, I believe, it wasn't Harrison Hind. It was Rodarius Williams, who's headed to short-term IR. So who the heck is going to be corner number 5? Remember, they kept only 8 defensive backs on the initial 53-man roster. And for a defense led by Wink Martindale, it's a blitzkrieg type of defense. You're going to war out there. You are rushing the passer pretty much every single play. That means you have to have good secondary players. Expect the Giants to give up a lot more deep plays this year than they did the last couple of years, but expect them to get more sacks, expect them to create more turnovers, expect their games to be higher scoring on both sides of the football. And I think it'll be interesting because you have Blake Martinez coming back off the torn ACL. You look at what the Giants have assembled. They kept 6 inside linebackers, which I actually agree with because we've seen some 4 inside linebacker sets, like guys like Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin as well, in addition to Tate Crowder and Micah McFadden. Shame that Darian Beavers tore his ACL. When you look at the edge rushing group, Quincy Roche on the practice squad, a little surprised by that because O'Shane Ximenez has not had a sack since 2019, so I don't love Ximenez on this roster, but everything else is fine. Kayvon and Aziz just need to stay healthy, and they're backed up with Jihad Ward, who's familiar with the wing scheme. They also have Ellerson Smith, and then you look at the defensive line, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Justin Ellis. The Giants are facing – majority of the teams they're facing this year are run-heavy football teams, right? So you want to be able to stop the run. And that's why the Giants have shifted their focus towards stopping the run and not defending the pass as much, if that makes sense. So overall, I think the defense is going to take not a major step back, but a minor step back from last year in pass coverage categories.
Tom, I think that's exactly why I think they have a very good chance this Sunday against in week 1 against the Titans. You know what? Because I'm not in love with the Titans. Their offensive line's in shambles. I don't trust Tannehill, and I think they're going to be playing a lot of low-scoring games down there in Tennessee this year. So I wouldn't be surprised they go in there Sunday 4:25 Eastern and they can pull out a W down there in Tennessee. I really do. And I do love, and that's one of the things also in the offseason, one of the moves I did like was the signing of Don Wink Martindale for 2 reasons. One, I liked what he did. What he did down there in Baltimore, and Hank knows I like him because of his nickname. Wink Martindale.
Yeah, as
I had to bring a game show. To it. But so Tom and Hank, I'll even throw this question to you too. So truth be told, you factor all these in. All this together, what do you think overall? What do you think is the Giants' ceiling, and what do you think actually is going to end up being their record this year?
I am going to go with, I keep forgetting it's a 17-game season. I've been so used to the 16 games, and it's still a change that I don't like. But I'm going to go with 6-11. And I know I don't mean to sound all pessimistic, Debbie Downer, I think the Giants actually will, they'll show signs of improvement. I think from what I saw in preseason, from what it looks like, what they've done in the offseason, I think they're going to be a better coach team. However, with that being said, let's not kid ourselves. This is still a roster that's a bit flawed and still recovering from the mess that good old Dave Gettleman made, to borrow a term that my buddy Johnny to my left uses a lot. So I think definitely it'll be a step forward, but as they say, Rome was not built in a day. 6-11, but I would not be surprised if the Giants somehow stole maybe an extra win out there or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty much my 2 cents.
Any given Sunday, right? Every year you're going to win games you're not supposed to. Look back at 2020 when the Giants went to Seattle with a backup quarterback. Who the hell thought Big Blue would win that game? That's when Joe Judge was at his finest, right? We haven't mentioned his name much on this show because, quite frankly, there were some good qualities about him as a head coach. And now you're looking at the team in 2022 saying, well, what's the ceiling for this team? I think the Giants could overperform record-wise this year because of exactly what Johnny mentioned, the schedule. The Giants finished in 4th place last year. Therefore, they're playing a 4th place schedule. The Giants could win on Sunday against Tennessee. I know that will technically be a week from Sunday, but or whenever the game is being played. But I think 7-10 is a realistic record, guys. I think 7 wins is very feasible for this football team. Again, ideal schedule, I'd say 5-12, 6-11, like what Hank is saying. But I could see them squeaking out another win or 2. I think they're going to be a very competitive football team. And at the end of the day, floor, 5-12. Ceiling, 8-9, 9-8. But that's being optimistic. 7-10 is the realistic record for Big Blue this season, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think no matter what the record's going to be with the Giants this year, they're going to be relevant the entire season because, you're going to find out, you're going to want to watch every game to see where your quarterback positions, what you're going to be doing a quarterback for the future, running back and all that kind of stuff. You can see Kayvon Thibodeau and Neal on both sides of the ball. Giants may not be relevant record-wise this year in some ways, but they are going to be relevant throughout the year because you're going to see a lot of things that you want to see throughout the year. And, it feels – that feels different, and in some ways it feels better. because, I hate the fact that, we've been in seasons and we've been, irrelevant while baseball's still going on. I think we'll be able to watch them, and, you guys will have plenty of stuff to be discussing on your show, Big Blue Avenue, which is on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern over there on the Review and Preview Sports Network. And that kicks off, and we will definitely be tuning into that for another season over there. But Tom Scavetta joining us from Review and Preview and Big Blue Avenue, great friend and a great part of the show here today. Tom, thanks so much, and maybe we'll catch up during the season, and I'll definitely see you over there on Review and Preview for sure.
Absolutely, Johnny, Hank. Thank you both so much for having me. Appreciate the time to come on and talk about the New York Giants. And, hey, let's go Big Blue.
Big Blue, yes, that's it. Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
See you guys.
And our thanks again to Tom Scavetta from Review and Preview and Big Blue Avenue. Check out Big Blue Avenue with Tom and Hank. That airs Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern over there at Review and Preview.
Oh, and don't forget Sam Cardona. She's going to be back this year, too.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Sam's great. I watch you guys all the time, and she's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to that. Yes.
Sorry, I got to give her some love here.
And that's my fault. I forgot to mention her as well. So Tom, Hank, and Sam, they're Thursdays at 7 p.m. over at Review and Preview Sports. Hank, so we've done a lot of NFL to start, but let's get a little college football into the course of the conversation. Not really any major things happening in week one. I mean, you had your favorites winning, with the exception, really, Notre Dame played a close game against Ohio State. I as a Notre Dame fan, I think you have to be kind of pleased with how that game worked out, because it was a one-score game for through most of the fourth quarter. And, Ohio State scored a late touchdown to make it 21-10. But I think if you're a Notre Dame fan, that's really all you could ask for, because in years past, that would have been a game they would have lost 52-17. And maybe with Marcus Freeman there, they have a little bit more momentum going. You saw what happened with Brian Kelly down there at LSU. So already Notre Dame should be on the better end of that. But you got Ohio State early. Ohio State usually has this kind of things going in the early going. So I think you've got to be happy about that. And if you're a Notre Dame fan, run out the schedule, win every game, play really well, and you could be definitely in the course. You could be in one of those Final Four teams in the playoff this year. I think that's certainly a possibility. But it all started really this past week with that backyard brawl between West Virginia and number 17 Pittsburgh, who won that game 38-31. But other than that, another big story really was number 7 Utah falling to Florida late 29-26. To me, that was a game that I think favored Florida to at least cover, and they not only covered, but they won the game outright. Number 19 Arkansas beat Cincinnati 31-24, so it doesn't look like we're going to see Cincinnati making that Cinderella run again. And Utah and Houston needed 3 overtimes to get past UTSA. I somehow caught the tail end of this, and it was crazy. Houston was down 2 scores in the fourth quarter, rallied to force overtime, and then they ended up winning it in 3 OTs, 37-35. But even before the big Saturday slate of games, Hank, the big news from college football this week was that the Board of Managers unanimously voted to expand the college football playoff to 12 teams in 2026. And expansion, this was inevitable. I think we were looking at possibly 8. There have been reports going to 16, but this has been something that's been discussed for a long, long time now, and it is going to become reality. It could even be as soon as 2024, but it's really what's being described as a historic day for college football. They are going to expand the playoff from its current format over to 12 teams, and you're going to have, and what they're saying is you're going to have 6. Let's take a look here. What are we looking at? We're looking at 6. I think out of the Power 5 and 6 others that are going to get there. Okay, so here's what it is: 6 highest ranked conference champions and 6 at-large bids. That's as at-large teams. That's what we're looking at. And they're still working on some final issues. They're actually going to be meeting this week to possibly discuss implementing this format as early as 2024. Hank, the thing that I like about this the most, there's a few things. So the first 4 seeds we get a bye, but I like the fact that you're talking about playoff games and the schools could play and will have home games on their own campus and playing at neutral instead of playing at neutral sites, because playing the playoff at neutral site just seems kind of strange. but I like the fact that you are going to see that. But this playoff expansion to me was inevitable. Now, I know you're not the biggest college football fan, but going from where we were in the I was going to say BS, it's BCS, which was really BS anyway. But going from the original BCS to the 14 playoff to now eventually the 12-team playoff, I think college football has turned it around here. And now we're talking about them being one of the biggest sports, even if it's collegiate, one of the biggest sports in the States.
You know, looking at what they're doing with the expansion of the playoffs, to me, there's really two ways to look at it. Like, I saw one take where a guy said that, like, them expanding the playoffs for 2026 was probably a mistake, just for the sheer fact that, like, you know, the way that the playoff system was, it meant that teams had to really earn it just to make it, into the playoffs. And while I think it makes sense to a certain extent, I also understand why that they made the change when they did, because I feel like when you're adding all those extra teams, you're giving a lot of really good teams hope, and a chance to really win the championship, because I've seen a lot of really good teams not even make the playoffs in years past. So should be interesting to see how that works out. I mean, you have a lot of like two loss seasons or 3 loss seasons that are pretty solid, but yet their season's pretty much done anyway. So I kind of like that.
Yeah. Now, of course, the naysayers are going to tell you like what happened this past week with Georgia against Oregon, where Georgia won 49-3, could be a precursor of that. Look, I'm not ready to go there. I think this is great because it allows the non-Power 5 schools to believe that they actually have a chance. And you look at Cincinnati. If you remember last year, look at Cincinnati, who was a non-Power 5 school, who broke that barrier. If you actually remember their game against Alabama, they actually did not play Bama that bad.
No.
And so I like this. It was inevitable. Now, I would have preferred it to go to 8, but I have no problem with it being 12, because really the first round is 8, because the first 4 teams are going to get a bye. And then the other schools, the 5, 6, 7, and 8 schools, will have their games on their home campus, which I like a lot. And maybe this allows like a Pac-12 school to get a team or two, because if you look at it going to the season, we were really only talking about Utah, who lost to Florida, and USC out of the Pac-12. So maybe you get them to come aboard and get a school or two, and you get to see some matchups that you wouldn't see. How would a Pac-12 school do against maybe a Big Ten or an SEC school? Matchups that we don't see that often. So I like it, and I think the way that it's structured is great, because it's not going to expand the season in terms of extending it like through. They always like to get the season done by early January, so I do like it in that regard. I think now the biggest question is going to be, when is this going to happen? Could this possibly be 2024? I don't know if they're ready to turn it around that quick. But the current contract right now, with how it is currently situated, is at the end of 2025. So, that's something to watch here. Does this playoff expansion start earlier, or does it start in 26? But either way, I think this is great for college football. I had this discussion with somebody. They think how popular could college football be with this? And I think it could challenge almost one of the major sports. I really do. And look, I think I've said this. Baseball has been going in the wrong direction now for quite some time. Am I ready to say that college football can overtake baseball? They could definitely close the gap. I really do, because it's CFP is really more national. I mean, there's some regions that's not as popular. The Northeast, I'd say, is definitely one of them. But you fill in those stadiums with hundreds of thousands of kids and fans. You don't get that in baseball. Baseball's become more of like a localized game, and this is more of a national thing. So I think it could definitely challenge one of the 4 major sports.
Yeah, no, I think what I was thinking when you asked if it could overtake baseball, and do I even mention he who must not be named here and his his clever marketing of Major League Baseball or lack thereof. I've been watching a little bit more college football over the years. Like, I'm probably going to be in the minority of people who stick with being with baseball ahead of college football, but that's just me. But if you look at how the games are played, I would not rule that out as a possibility at all. And I'm sorry, but that really should not be the case at all. Thanks a lot, Manfred.
There it is. See, I was channeling it. There it is.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I say that is, if you think of all the sports that we like, that we have, basketball, baseball, hockey, NFL. I'm going to group in the NFL with college football in this regard. College football is the best structured sport because it's only 12 games for most teams, 12, 13 weeks. And every game means something. And it's not only just the game, it's how you play too. Like I mentioned, you look at Notre Dame, who lost 21-10 against number 2 Ohio State. They played them tough and were only down one score mid to late fourth quarter against the second best team in the country. I think it's fair to say that Alabama and Ohio State are better than everybody else by a country mile. But if Notre Dame loses that game by 30-40, they get blitzed from the opening drive on. We're looking at them, and if they end up winning the rest of their games, I think you're looking at Notre Dame in a different mindset heading into into talking about the college football playoff than you would say if they lost to Ohio State by 50. So that's what I'm saying. Not only is every game critical, but it's how you play in those games. So a team like Notre Dame could benefit from the fact that they played Ohio State very, very close and ended up only losing really by, I know it was 2 scores, but really was only by 1 score. So that's what's really cool about it. And then the playoff structure where you have 4 teams. I mean, look, we know from the history of the BCS and how terrible that was. I mean, that was a joke. There's no doubt about it. But this 4-team playoff now with the semifinals on New Year's Eve into the national championship game, that second Monday in January, now to 8 teams where, you're going to have multiple weeks of intense playoff football is awesome. And this was inevitable. This was a discussion they've been having for such a long time. They went to 4 teams, which was great. Then there was even discussion about 8. They were rushing 12 for a while here, but the way that this has been formatted and stuff, I think is perfect. And you're going to see some different matchups that you wouldn't normally see during the regular season. Now, of course, the thing that maybe is going to turn some people away is you might get some more blowouts in playoff football. But I like the fact you're going to see some different matchups, and who knows? That's something to watch. But we will find out as the playoffs expansion is coming for sure in 2026 and quite possibly even sooner in 2024. And, of course, speaking of college football, folks, always check out every Thursday. I will give you a Monty moment as we look ahead to the biggest games and storylines in college football. 2-1 in week 1 with my 3 picks, and we'll give you a few more and a couple of other storylines heading into week 2. That'll drop this Thursday and every Thursday on Facebook, Twitter, and, of course, our YouTube channel at ATB Network. Hank, think about how busy this week was when Donovan Mitchell, a guy that we've been talking about a lot this summer, we're just getting to him now. And this trade broke a couple of days ago. It officially happened that he got dealt to the Cleveland Cavaliers for 3 players and multiple draft picks, unprotected ones and stuff. Now, leading into this trade, the Knicks, I love what they did here. And I did a Monty moment on this originally last week, and then Donovan Mitchell, and then this trade happened, which kind of flipped it around. But Leon Rose and the Knicks gave the Cavaliers a deadline. Gave the Jazz a deadline for Donovan Mitchell. And kudos to Leon Rose. A lot of people have been critical of them, have been critical of the Knicks and this whole process. But I love the fact that they really were starting to put the pressure on Danny Ainge to try and get this deal done. And if they didn't get it done, they were going to extend R.J. Barrett. And that's what they did. They gave him a 4-year rookie extension. And I love that. And then, so the deal does not go through, and you hear the reports that, all right, Knicks could still get Donovan Mitchell, but it's going to be more challenging to get it done. And a couple of days later, this comes out, the Woj bomb, like it's been for quite some time now, about Donovan Mitchell going to the Cavaliers. And my first initial thoughts were, I was shocked because I thought the Cavs were out. There was a report saying that the Cleveland Cavaliers were out on Mitchell. So that's another reason why I thought the Knicks were in a favorable position to land him. But look at what the Cavaliers gave up. They gave up 3 players, Colin Sexton, who is among the biggest of them, and 5 first-round picks to get Mitchell. And I think of this as a Knicks fan. Am I disappointed that they didn't get Donovan Mitchell? I'm not. I have been on the record of saying this. Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks would have been nice, but him alone does not elevate the Knicks to a top team. Now, him getting dealt to the Cavs, totally different story. I think right now you're looking at it, and the Cleveland Cavaliers have to be among the favorites in the Eastern Conference to get out of there now with Mitchell.
Yeah, I would have loved to have had Donovan Mitchell on the Knicks, but I think the problem is you're in a conference that is way too loaded. I mean, Johnny, we were just talking about, like, we were trying to name, like, a good amount of teams in the Eastern Conference that are probably still better than the Knicks, even if they had gotten Donovan Mitchell. And I believe we came up with at least 5 or 6 now.
All right, so I'm going to, Hank, as you bring that up, let me tell you, let's say the Knicks got Donovan Mitchell, right? And yes. I'm even going to tell you they got Donovan Mitchell without trading RJ Barrett. All right. Okay. So let's say the Knicks got Donovan Mitchell without trading RJ Barrett. So, and everybody be excited. All right, here we go. Knicks on their way. First of all, it'd be a nice start, but here's the reality of it. Are the Knicks with Donovan Mitchell, are they better than the Miami Heat? No. Are they better than the Boston Celtics? No. Are they better than Milwaukee Bucks? No. Are they better than the Philadelphia 76ers? No. Are they better than the Toronto Raptors? No. Are they better than the Brooklyn Nets? No. Are they better than the Atlanta Hawks? No. Are they better than the Bulls? No.
No.
Are they better than the Cavaliers who didn't get Donovan Mitchell? Cavaliers had a very good year last year. I'm going to say no. That's 9 teams I just rattled off there. The Heat, the Celtics, the Bucks, the 76ers, the Raptors, the Bulls, the Nets, the Hawks, and the Cavaliers, even with the Knicks getting Donovan Mitchell, are better than the Knicks. The Knicks are better than the Hornets, the Wizards, the Pacers, the Pistons, and the Magic. So and this is what I try and tell, because my Knicks friends, and I was looking on social media, Knicks fans were completely overreacting to this move, that they didn't get Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks makes them a playing tournament team. He doesn't elevate them to among the tops of the Eastern Conference, but with the with the Cleveland Cavaliers, they now have Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, and Evan Mobley. I mean, that's among the top. That's among the tops right there. With that lineup, you're looking at them being a top 4 team for multiple years now.
Yeah, I am not going to be breaking out the riot gear for this, despite the fact that they missed out on a superstar. And looking at one of the trades that would have been a possibility, I'm sorry, but if you're in a rebuild, there is no reason you should be getting rid of RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, multiple first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell, who I cannot say for sure would have definitely elevated the Knicks. Sorry, I cannot keep yawning, but who would have elevated the Knicks to higher than where they are. So they probably dodged a bullet. And again, if they had made that trade, then that really defeats the purpose of a rebuild.
So, Hank, before Mitchell Robinson signed his 4-year extension with the Knicks in early July, Woj was reporting that the Knicks and the Jazz discussed multiple iterations of a Mitchell trade, which would have included, ready for this, RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, and 3 unprotected first-round picks. I mean, I'm sorry. If the Knicks are offering that and the Jazz would have said no, and the Jazz said no to that, you know what it makes me think? it makes me think that the Utah Jazz never wanted to trade Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right? I mean, I said that right after the trade when Mitchell went to the Cavaliers, that this made me think that the Jazz never wanted to trade Mitchell to the Knicks, and they were trying to fleece the Knicks for more first-round picks and more players. And look what the Knicks have here still. They still have a nice rebuilding group. See, the thing is, and this is what all my Knicks fans are getting, and I'm sure, and I understand this, they're doing this the right way, but the two problems the Knicks run into is this rebuild should have started 10 to 15 years ago, and they're doing this rebuild right now in an Eastern Conference that is absolutely stacked. I just listed you 8 or 9 teams that are better than the Knicks, even if they do get Donovan Mitchell. So that's the thing they're running into, but they're finally doing this the right way. Now, what you would like to see is, and this point is fair, this might be the one fair point that Knicks fans have been saying on social media since this trade. You want to see the young kids play more. If you didn't want to trade them for Mitchell, you want to see them play more. I have no problem with that. I would love to see Quentin Grimes get more time. I would love to see guys like Quickly and Toppin get more time. I think that's absolutely fine. But to me, the Knicks have had a good and smart offseason, shoring up the point guard position, which they have not been able to do in years with Jalen Brunson. Now, I'm not going to tell you that Jalen Brunson is the top 5 or top 10 point guard, but I'll tell you right now, he's the best point guard going into the season the Knicks have had in years. RJ Barrett, I think he's only 22 years old. I think he's ready to take the next steps and be almost the next star. Maybe be the next star in the NBA. I think you've got that. I think you've got Mitchell Robinson. You've got young guys. You've got a veteran in Derrick Rose who I think is going to help the young guys out a lot. I like what the Knicks have been doing here. And let's be honest also, Hank, there's going to be another disgruntled star that wants out of a team real soon. And the Knicks have the assets and the players to go get that done. So I sit here right now in September, and I'm not disappointed the Knicks didn't get Donovan Mitchell, because I think Danny Ainge is trying to fleece the Knicks for as many picks and players as possible. When you look at what the Cavaliers gave up, Colin Sexton would have meant the Knicks would have had to trade Barrett.
I was going to say, if you look at Danny Ainge's track record, you probably should be careful when dealing with him.
Yeah, the Cavs gave up a lot, and they are in a better position with Mitchell. He's a better fit with the Cavaliers to go out there and win a championship. Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks would have been nice, but it still only would have been a start. You still would have needed to get another star player or two in here in order to really contend. And you're talking about right now in a situation with the Eastern Conference, which is as deep as it's ever been before. We have spent the last several years talking about how loaded the Western Conference is and how weak the Eastern Conference is. It's switched. The East right now will be in a situation going into this year where the 7th or 8th seed is probably over 500. You haven't been able to say that for years in the Eastern Conference. The West will have teams that are under 500 making the postseason. That's how weak the West is and how strong the East is. So that's why I have no problem sitting here. I'm not crying. I'm not disappointed. I did not slam my hand against this table like that the Knicks didn't get Donovan Mitchell, because I know that they would have had to trade the world to get him, and they still would have barely been a playoff team. And I said they've been in a win-win-win situation throughout this offseason. Signing Barrett, you either keep Barrett and trade your assets. You had those assets and stuff to go get him, Mitchell. I understand that. But you look at what they supposedly offered, what Woj said they reported. They offered him, and the Jazz said no. Makes you think, you know what? It's not like the Knicks didn't try, folks. I mean, you're telling me that the Jazz would have said no to Barrett, who could be a star, Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, and 3 unprotected first-round picks, and they said that's not enough, and they said no to that? I mean, that's all you can do. And, it's not like they didn't sign Barrett. Barrett's here. They've got, 4-year contracts. You think about it now. For 4 years now, they're going to have a core group of Barrett, of Brunson, and Randall. And a lot of people are down on Randall. And I'll say this. If Randall bounces back and is like the Julius Randle of 2 years ago, then the Knicks can, be a fun team to watch this year. He's really going to be the key this entire season. What Randall am I getting? Am I getting the crappy one from last year, or am I getting the all-star one of 2 years ago? Because if he turns it around to what he's like 2 years ago, then it's not a far reach to say the Knicks aren't actually going for one of those four teams in the play-in tournament.
Yeah, no,
Grant, but in
Yeah.
a good way.
Definitely.
I
think the Knicks dodged a bullet.
I think so.
Knicks,
I really do.
dodged a bullet.
Because obviously they would have had to trade everything in their kid brother to get Mitchell, and you know what? He's a free agent again in 4 years. Maybe we relive this in 4 years. He'll be 28, 29 years old in 4. Maybe we're reliving this again. And again, there'll be another one out there, and the Knicks have the assets to go get that. They have you look at it, they've got multiple first-round picks these next several years. You look at the Jazz now have several. You've got the Thunder with several. You can go trade up. You can go trade some of those picks and get a player. I'm fine. I see this rebuild. I like what the Knicks are doing with this rebuild. This needed to start a long time ago, but I think they're finally building a foundation. Thibodeau's back for his 3rd year. You know what? Let's get it done. I'm okay. I sit here right now. I know I did my Monty moment about the Knicks going to get Mitchell, but I'm happy with this. I'm happy they re-signed one of their own players in Barrett to a 4-year extension. I'm fine with this. I like what they're doing. So, yeah, you would have liked to have gotten Mitchell, but if the ultimate goal is to make the playoffs and win a championship, Mitchell would have been a start, but you're still looking at a lot more before you can go get something done. Before you can go get it done. So I'm totally fine with that. And so we'll find out here with the Knicks, as before you know it, training camp's going to open. Their season's going to start here real soon. Hank, real quick, let's finish up the show with a little bit of baseball because the two local teams here that we talk about a lot, the Yankees and the Mets, had a very interesting week. Now, the Yankees are right now playing the Twins this week, so maybe a chance to rebound. But, Hank, you're looking at this offense going down to Tampa, losing 2 out of 3 to the Rays, and starting this week with only a 5-game lead in the AL East with about 28, 29 games to go. This was probably kind of weak in the kind of stretch where you could rant. So the floor is yours.
Unbelievable. I'm not even going to admit that I'm surprised about it. I'm not even going to tell you that I'm surprised. I knew the Yankees were going to have trouble going into the Circus Tent. That's a place where they have historically struggled. Well, granted, not as bad as the Oakland Mausoleum or Coliseum or whatever you want to call that shithole in Oakland. But the fact of the matter is, Tampa is always a thorn in their side. I knew the Yankees were going to struggle. What I didn't know was that their struggle would be because literally everybody in the lineup, and when I mean everybody in the lineup, I mean everybody not named Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, you are exempt from any criticism that I am going to be delivering upon the New York Yankees. And this is a series that came right after Garrett Cole had one of his patented one bad inningitis games. And I've got some fun facts for you that really are not so fun facts. So
I was going to say, you're telling me fun facts, but are they really fun?
Do you want to know the Yankees hitting stats for this weekend against the Rays?
I can only imagine, but go ahead.
9 for 87. 1 RBI, 0 runs scored, 2 extra base hits. Again, this is everybody not named Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, 5 for 11, 3 runs scored. Those are the only runs scored this weekend. And 2 RBIs, 3 extra base hits, and 2 home runs. Well done. Well done, sir. You're going to, if you're trying to make another case for Hal and Brian Cashman to pay you the big bucks, you're doing an excellent job of that, sir. Yeah. Then let's talk about the road trip as a whole. Everybody else, 37 for 262. That's a 141 batting average. 12 runs scored, 6 RBIs, 3 home runs. Are you ready for Aaron Judge's numbers?
Sure.
11 for 33, which is a 333 batting average. 7 runs scored, 10 RBIs, 5 home runs. Are you going to literally sit here? Now, I'm sorry if I'm going on a little bit of a tangent here, but I need to get into the MVP race too, because I mentioned it on my last episode of Hitting for the Cycle. I cannot for the life of me understand how there are still people that are sitting here and trying to tell me that Shohei Ohtani should be the American League MVP. And make no mistake, Shohei Ohtani's numbers are absolutely fantastic. Like, a two-way player hitting and pitching wise, you're not going to see that very often. I don't care about that. Aaron Judge is the only hitter in the Yankees lineup whose batting average is over 300, and he is leading the league in RBIs, home runs, OBP, slugging percentage, OPS, and OPS plus. And if I were to go on further and give you all of his numbers, those are Barry Bonds-like. Are you honestly going to sit here and tell me, forget first place, the Yankees might barely even be in a wild card spot if Aaron Judge was not on this team? Almost every single win they've had in the second half of the season, Aaron Judge has had something to do with. He is carrying this squad. If the Yankees hold on and win the division, we're going to say that he carried them. That's the reality of this.
Yeah, I got nothing else I can add. I could go off my own little tangent about the MVP when it comes to baseball, and this is what I don't get.
And I hate that the idea of penalizing Aaron Judge just because he's not a two-way player like Shohei Ohtani is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, I don't even think it's that. I think we have to really just boil down to the basics, Hank, and talk about what exactly the award should stand for, what it stands for, what it should stand for.
Mm-hmm.
MVP is most valuable player. Now, you want to tell me it's outstanding player, you want to talk about most outstanding player, then absolutely I could give it to Shohei Ohtani. But Shohei Ohtani is not the most valuable player. You nailed it right on the head there. It's valuable player. And Judge, to me, has been more valuable. And it's not even just his numbers, it's the value. And he is more valuable there than what Shohei Ohtani's done to the Angels. And it's not his fault. It's just the Angels are a terrible team around him. But yeah. I don't get valuable players should be going to a team, should be going to a player on a team that's making the playoffs. Or unless you're going to have an out-of-this-world team like, A-Rod down in Texas back in 2003. I think that is the one time I would grant the exception. But even then, A-Rod in 2003 was on a team that did not win. So why is he most valuable? If you want to give him an award, give him the MOP, the AL MOP, most outstanding player. It should not be valuable. I don't understand for the life of me why we're talking about an MVP race between one player on a team that's making the playoffs and another one that's not in the playoff hunt. I have never gotten that. It's been 20 plus years and probably my whole life that we've had this I've had this conversation. Like, what the heck what is the definition of MVP? Not MOP. If you want to sit here and tell me that Shohei Ohtani is having the better of the 2 years, then give him the most outstanding player. Don't tell me he's the MVP of the American League when Aaron Judge is right now sitting on a team that is playoff bound because of with his numbers, and the Angels are not. And again, if you want to award Shohei Ohtani an award, give him the most outstanding player. Change the award system. Maybe that's something else they should have done in the lockout is talk about award systems. But that's my whole point about this. I agree with you.
By the way, now I have a fun fact for you.
All right, now we have a fun fact. Yay!
You mentioned A-Rod. Aaron Judge now is tied for A-Rod has now tied A-Rod for most home runs in a single season by a right-handed hitter.
As a Yankee, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Correct.
He had 54 on Monday. Yep.
Yeah, as a Yankee, for sure.
Yeah, I remember that. A-Rod hit 54. I think it was in 07, right? Yep.
Yes, 2007. And now that you can argue was an MVP season. Unfortunately, as far as what happened in the playoffs, we'll try to block that out of our memory bank, like a lot of A-Rod's playoff performance. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I cannot for the life of me understand the logic behind giving Shohei Ohtani the MVP reward. And you nailed it on the head too. It's most valuable player, not most outstanding. And as I said, if you look at his numbers compared to Shohei Ohtani, and Aaron Judge is the better one.
And Hank, I want to just make this very, very clear because I'm sure I'm going to get responses on social media, and I'll be glad to respond to them.
Sure.
I am not knocking Ohtani. I am knocking the definition of MVP. Because I'll tell you right now, if you're going to give it to Ohtani, then you need to change the name of the award. That's what it comes down to. This should not be MVP. Just make it the most outstanding player in each league. And you know what? I would not have a problem with it because he's a two-way player. That is outstanding. What Ohtani is doing in baseball is one of the best feats we're seeing in sports. Of course, baseball is not promoting it enough, which is one of their millions of problems. But what he's doing is so remarkable, it should be being talked about on a national stage consistently. And it is not. It would literally be about the 20th major story that's happening in sports right now because they do not promote him enough. It is remarkable what he's doing. We'll be looking back on this and saying, wow, I totally forgot of how great he was, not only as a pitcher, but as a hitter as well. It would be amazing. But yeah, I agree with you. Aaron Judge, and look, listen to how I'm going to say this. He could suffer a season-ending injury tomorrow, and he'd still be the MVP in my opinion, because he's been that great.
And I think you could even make a bigger case if, God forbid, something like that happened and the Yankees slipped out of first place, or worse, weren't even in the wild card game. So, yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. And by the way, let me get back to the series against Tampa Bay Rays. And the reason I didn't really talk much about that series was this was about as putrid of a series as I've ever seen. And you would think that the way that I'm talking about this, the Yankees got swept, but somehow they didn't. And the fact that they didn't even get swept in that series is a huge miracle. But let me talk about something that really infuriated me about the first game. 9-0. The fact that they lost 9-0 to the Rays didn't bother me. Yankees lose 9-0. It happens. And generally speaking, I don't get pissed when the Yankees lose. Usually it's how they lose. That the Yankees lost 9-0 didn't bother me. That their lineup, I didn't really like. I didn't really like that you had DJ leading off, putting Judge at second, then putting Benintendi at third, who now might be out for the season.
It's going to hurt.
I hate life. And then you have Stanton after Benintendi. That wasn't even one of my bigger problems, although I did not like that lineup building by Aaron Boone. But again, that's neither here nor there. My biggest issue, you have a shortstop on your roster that you just called up, and you've been hyping him out as one of your big prospects. Now, whether he pans out or not, again, that's neither here nor there. You could have just had him start this game at shortstop, or you're either start him or you don't even play him. You have him make his debut in a pinch hit situation when you're down to your last licks in a game that's fucking 9-0. I'm sorry. That is very unacceptable.
We're going to need another graphic Hank rant alert.
What? In what planet is it okay to treat a young player like that? I'm sorry. That's pretty disgraceful.
Yep.
9-0, and you're letting your young player make his debut. What does that do to his confidence? Poor guy's going to be all upset. Imagine he tells his kids, "Oh, I made my debut because the Yankees were so negligent. I had to be the last out." Fuck off. That's all I say. And then the second game of the series, you lose 2-1, and I got to tell you, Johnny, I was actually watching this on my Yes app while I was at Citi Field because one of my summer coworkers had an extra ticket and invited me to that game. When I had my phone on and the ninth inning happened and Aaron Judge hit that home run, I actually almost exploded. And you want to know why? Because all I kept saying was, why couldn't this have happened with the runner on base? Or why couldn't this have happened sooner?
Well, see, this is part of the problem right now with the Yankees.
Is just been so infuriating, with me. The bad lineups, the hitting stuff. And then the fact that they even were able to win the third game, and again, God bless Aaron Judge.
Well, Hank, I think you're speaking to a big problem right now with the Yanks, and that is their lineup and it's their construction. And you notice at every game, it seems like Aaron Boone is having to trot out a different lineup. And this is actually going back to a point that I made with you when we started the season. The lineup, to me, the roster construction is scary because they have the makeup of hitting together and also slumping together. And right now they are slumping together. And they're also dealing right now with Anthony Rizzo, who's been out for multiple games with a back problem. DJ LeMay, who I don't think is healthy, which is once again starting to look just like last year again, which is not good. I mean, his average has dropped about 30 points from its peak earlier this year, LeMay, and that is a huge blow. And when your lineup's not hitting, Donaldson, who can't get on base, Stanton, who's slumped since he's come off the injured list, you know what's going to end up happening? They're going to pitch around Judge. Judge is not going to get anything to hit. It's actually been a miracle that he's hit home runs in 3 consecutive games now. But they're all solo shots pretty much for the most part.
And you know what Ralph Kiner once said years ago? Solo home runs usually come with no one on base.
Yeah, and they don't kill you. Yeah, and they don't really kill you. Look at it. I mean, and that's what it really comes down to. You realize that, they've had guys that have gone hitless for weeks now in the lineup. I mean, it's between injuries or whatnot, but that's been part of the problem of how the lineup construction. Now, again,
and can I just say, by the way, about the Yandy Diaz at bat in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs? I don't blame him for being pissed. That should have been ball 4. Like, credit Jose Trevino, because he's a much better pitch framing catcher than the guy we had, for the past few years and even as recently as last year. But I don't blame him for being upset. And I got to be honest with you, this is like the first Yankee win I can think of in a very long time where I felt like, oh, they just, somehow stole that one.
You'll take it, but yeah, that was.
I'll take it, but you can ask Nick Morgeson. We were literally messaging each other back and forth during the 9th inning of that game. He'll tell you the same thing.
Yeah, it was such a close pitch. I mean, it could have gone either way, but I think the framing, it looked like it was a little bit low, but I could see why also at the same time and then bringing it up a little bit. But you know what? You'll take it, and I'll keep saying it, Hank. Time's still on the Yankee side here because at least it's not October 5th, but you're looking for a turnaround at some point. Otherwise, the pitching staff is going to be under a tremendous amount of pressure heading into October here.
Yes.
I think the Yankees eventually still hold on in this division. I don't think that's an issue, but my issue is going to be how is this team going to be looking heading to October?
Yeah. And
if you're going to October with a LeMahieu that's going to be banged up like he was last year, that's that's going to affect you in a lot of ways.
And if you're going to have Rizzo, who's not 100% either, and I'm sorry, but the back issue that he's having, that's no joke. I mean, look at another first baseman in Yankee history who dealt with that.
Yeah, and they don't really have anybody else who can play first base. You're not going to move Donaldson to first. You're going to play Marwin Gonzalez there.
And we better hope that Andrew Benintendi is back in this lineup in October, because just when he was starting, he then hurts the hamate bone.
He said that he thinks he can be back, but that's usually a 4 to 6 week kind of injury.
They cannot catch a break. And look, I'm not. There's another person who should be scapegoated too. The 2 people up top, Boone and Cashman, are both have had their reasons of fault, but obviously luck doesn't help either. But of course, sometimes if certain moves that could have been made had happened, then they could have created their own luck. So that argument is probably a wash.
Yeah, I can't go killing Boone and Cashman. I would say this. The one thing I would criticize Boone on, and in some ways it's not even his fault too, you're trotting out a different lineup and you're moving guys around in the lineup every single game, and there's no consistency.
Yes, that I don't like.
That is a problem. But at the same time, when you look at it, to me, you don't have right now with LeMahieu being banged up, with Benintendi now being out, you don't have a legitimate, capable leadoff hitter. And I'm sorry, you cannot have Aaron Judge leading off. I know he's your best hitter right now, but I mean, you're gonna.
Aaron Judge is supposed to be in a spot where he can drive in runs. Isn't that the purpose of having a cleanup hitter?
Well, yeah. Well, I don't think he's a cleanup hitter. I actually think his best spot is number 2. I think he's
either way, you get what I mean. If you're a good power hitter,
Or you could move him. See, my ideal lineup would be, and I know we have to get out of here, but I would have Benintendi leading if they're all healthy. I'd have Benintendi leading off. I'd have LeMahieu second, and I have Judge third. I think that's your best chance to get run production. But right now, Benintendi, who we don't know, I mean, he said he's going to be back at the end of the season. We don't know. LeMahieu, I think, who's banged up right now, and you're seeing he has slumped off so much from where he was in the middle of the summer. That's a problem. And then, Donaldson, who doesn't get on base, Stanton, who's so streaky, it's ridiculous. And, Torres, who has completely fallen apart. I have no idea what has happened to him to the point he may not even be on this team next year if it's going to be like that. If you have all these other prospects, middle infield prospects, Torres should just be gone next year. I mean, my God, he's fallen off so much. It's unbelievable. And then, Hicks, who I was begging for the longest time to get going. He hasn't gotten going. It's unbelievable. And Rizzo being out is major because you don't really have a capable backup first baseman. They were having Marwin Gonzalez play first base on Monday. And I know he's versatile, and I love those kind of guys, those kind of versatile players, but you need to also, every now and then get on base. I think he had one hit coming into Monday since July. But again, I'm trying to be optimistic and say that it's September and it's not October, but it's definitely concerning. But we'll find out. But Hank, you know what? I know. It's very worrisome.
With the way they've been the past half decade, probably more, I'm sorry, but I've had every right to feel dicey.
Oh, I understand that. But this year has just felt so different because they've got off to such a remarkable start. And it was not just 30 games, it was the first half of the season.
Let me say once again, I don't ever want to hear any 1998 comparisons in June ever again. Thank you very much.
I think any Yankee fan that was around in 1998 could tell you that comparing this team to the 98 team was insulting in so many ways. They're not better. The only thing they were better in is that they had a power right. Aaron Judge was more powerful than anybody on the 98 team. But that's not set. But you know what? Every other position and statistic and whatever metric you want to use, this team wasn't better than 98. They weren't better starting pitching wise. They weren't better bullpen wise. They weren't better lineup wise. They weren't better defense wise.
Yep.
I mean, I understand. Look, it's great for sports talk. It's great for those shows like MLB Now, who I know use that graphic. Can't do it. And I wanted to go off on another rant here, but we're running out of time. All I'll say is just this: for the people out there that tell me that the Mets are collapsing, give me a break. All right, the Mets are not. The Mets are not collapsing. The Mets are 50-33 since June 1st. The Braves are 61-24. The Mets are not collapsing. Yes, Johnny rant alert. Because you know what? And I think ESPN had said this, that the Mets collapsing here. Guys, they are 50-33. This is not 2007 or 2008. They're 17 games over 500 since June 1st. The Braves are a great team. And we've also been down this road before where the Braves have cut it down to a half a game. And if the Braves do, in fact, when we're back here next week, if they do overtake the Mets, it'll be because the Braves are better. That's all. The Mets don't stink or not. They are struggling a little bit here, but
I will say this: losing 2 out of 3 to the Nationals does not help.
Yeah, but that's going to happen. You're
right. It does happen, but it didn't help.
It did not. But you know what? We said the same thing when they were losing to the Yankees when they got swept at Yankee Stadium, but they bounced back. The Mets starting pitching wise is too good. That's why they haven't had a long losing streak this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't think if they do slump off, I mean, if the Braves do overtake them, it's not going to be because of the Mets. It's going to be that the Braves are that good. I mean, the Braves really are that good if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hole anywhere in that lineup. The Mets actually do have a hole at DH and stuff, but look, I mean, you got to be happy with where they are right now. I mean, I think New York baseball can get back on the right way. I think we're going to have a fun time going into October. But I read that on Monday, telling me the Mets are collapsing. I'm like, guys, come on. They're 50-33 since June 1st. That's a collapse. You know what that tells me? That proves my point. You're calling them a collapse at 50-33. How about the other team that's doing that? That means they must be playing unbelievably well.
I wish it were the opposite, but
yeah. And on that note, a Hank rant alert and a Johnny rant alert puts a bow on episode number 24 here of Game On. So, again, just a couple of quick programming notes. And, again, our thanks to Tom Scavetta from Review and Preview and Big Blue Avenue for joining us to preview the Giants. But just, again, a couple of notes. Thursday, I will be giving you some college football picks, of course, going through and also previewing week 2, some storylines there. Friday, we will have our NFL picks, our first full one against the spread. Hank will message me his picks. I'll come on Friday. I'll drop our picks on Friday and go from there. And, of course, with Tom and Hank, go check them out. And Sam on Thursday, Big Blue Avenue over there as well. And, of course, you've got Empty the Bench 151 happening on Wednesday. I have a feeling that's going to be a very special show. And, of course, a bunch of other shows here on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. So, again, football is back in full swing. Our picks, Hank, we are just getting started. Baseball's coming down the stretch, and who knows with basketball. And then before you know it, it's going to be hockey season too. So we are going to have a lot of fun here on Game On and also on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. So for Hank and Dictor, I am Johnny Montalbano. This has been episode 24 of Game On. I will see you Thursday and Friday, and Hank and I will see you back here again next week.